advise all with us this evening that the meeting will be recorded and published on the Southwest Middlesex YouTube channel or website. Council, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest or a general nature thereof? I do not see any hands, so we'll move on from there. Item number 3 on our agenda, additions to agenda. And again, I don't see any hands, so we'll move on from that. We will have a motion that the regular agenda of council dated April 21st be accepted as presented. I'll entertain a motion for that. Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. Seconder for that. Councillor Crothers. Discussion. In favor? Carried. Item number 4. Delegations and presentations. I have none listed. Council, item number 5 on our agenda is the consent agenda. And please raise your hand, any councillor, if you wish any discussion on any of the items from A through J. April 7th council meetings draft. Southwest Middlesex vouchers. Southwest Middlesex March building report. Southwest Middlesex annual planning update. No questions, but Stephanie, I'd like to thank you very much for submitting that report. It's been an unprecedented year of growth and inquiries, and we know you've been very, very busy, and we extend our gratitude to you there. Resolution, Township of Hudson. Letter from the Honorable Ernie Hardman, Minister of Agriculture and Food and Rural Affairs. NASM plan approval. Middlesex London Health Unit Board of Health March 2021 update. Southwest Middlesex landfill status update. Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead. Through the chair.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yes, does that mean we're going to get a report on the Trillium landfill pretty soon?
I'll pass that over to Greg if he is. This was an update, and I'm sure that'll be forthcoming. I'll let Greg answer that question. Greg, go ahead.
Yep, thank you, and through you, Mayor Allen. Yeah, the actual submission has been made by Golders to MECP, and once that has been looked at by them, yes, we will be having Golders present that report to council directly.
Thank you, Greg. And no other hands. We'll leave that behind. Southwest Middlesex Recreation status update. Yes, Councillor Vink, through the chair. Martin.
Yes, Mayor Allen. That's what I said first time as well. Anyway, I was wondering, I know we have Zoom meetings, but as far as this recreation coordinator, I was wondering how that came about. Was that part of the reorganization? I just don't recall how that all came about. Could that be explained?
I will pass that over to Jill and Greg. Could both entertain an answer to that question. I always am cautious on this as a personnel matter. And Jill, if you feel uncomfortable doing that, just advise the chair. But go ahead if you wish.
Sure. Through you, Mayor Mayhew, I think I can respond to Councillor Vink's question that yeah, as part of the reorganization and the business plan that was presented during the budget, this was a position that was going to be temporary in that it's just for part of the year. So it's a contract position for 5 months of the year. So I think that council is aware of that and the public's been aware of that as well.
Okay. Thank you, Jill. And Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
I initially thought it was going to be 7 months, but obviously that's not the case. I'd hoped it would be May, June, July, August, September. I suppose not. I guess I hoped it had been hired sooner, but perhaps next year it'll be in the budget for a little longer if this year is successful.
Okay, thank you. Any other hands? We can leave this behind. Okay. The council will entertain a motion that the consent agenda items 5A through 5J as information be accepted and approve the council minutes of April 7th. Would someone entertain that motion? Councillor Crothers, seconder. Councillor McGill. Discussion. All in favor? Motion's carried. Item number 6 on our agenda is Committee of Adjustment. We will consider item B4/2020 consent application 4087 Old Drive regarding Dave McEachran. So council, we will switch agendas, go into our committee agenda. And Jill, I'll call the meeting to order at 7:07. And today's meeting is being held as a virtual meeting due to the declared emergency in order to keep everyone safe. We're taking this measure to stop the spread of COVID-19. Committee, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll move on. The minutes of the March 24th Committee of Adjustment meeting have been circulated.
So moved.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. A seconder for that, please. Councillor Cowell. Discussion. All in favor? Carried. And the Committee of Adjustment, business item 4.1, consent application B4/2020, David McEachran. We'll call this application to order, the business to order at 7:08. Stephanie, if you could define the purpose of this meeting and present your report and your recommendation, you may go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's actually Marion will be presenting this report.
Okay, thank you, Marion. You take your time, and Marion, you make yourself right at home there.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. It's a pleasure meeting all of you. So again, my name is Marion Cabral, and I'm a planner with Middlesex County, and I've been helping Stephanie out on a few files, including the one before you tonight. So I will bring up a location map just to provide some context. I believe it's disabled. There you go. Thank you. Okay. All right. So hopefully you can see that on your screen right now. So this consent application is for the property located at 4087 Old Drive. This is a farm parcel that's approximately 31 hectares in area with frontage of approximately 305 meters. The applicant is essentially requesting a surplus farm dwelling severance. However, in this case, the applicant will retain the dwelling and the residential property, and the farm parcel or the severed parcel will be consolidated with another farming operation. Unofficially, we call this a reverse surplus farm dwelling severance, and this is to help streamline that land transfer process. The property currently contains a residence, 3 storage barns, a pasture and corral, and is serviced by a well and septic system. The applicant is proposing to sever the farm parcel, and that's over 30 hectares in area with 213 meters of frontage. This would create a residential parcel that would be retained with approximately 0.8 hectares or just over 2 acres in area and 91 meters of frontage. The parcel is sized as such to accommodate the double access to the property and accounts for the storage buildings or storage barns as well. Additionally, the applicant has advised that the storage barns will be used for storage of personal effects and that a concrete yard for landscaping materials and palletized items would be stored there. So generally the application meets the intent of the provincial policy statement and the county official plan. When reviewing this application, staff did note that a rezoning would be needed to prohibit any future residences on that severed farm parcel, and that the retained parcel would need to be rezoned to recognize the residential use. The applicant would also need to confirm that all utilities and services are wholly contained on that residential property and that there is an adequate supply of water available. With regard to the farm building, staff had recommended that the buildings be removed as it is surplus to the farm use, or that they can provide evidence that it is structurally sound for residential accessory buildings. And this is generally consistent with official plan policy in section 5.4. Staff also note that the pasture and the fenced area, as well as the corral, are located on the farm parcel and have requested that these facilities be removed or that the applicant provide a separate entrance directly to these lands. And this is to further separate the residential use from that farm parcel and also to provide that second access or the first access essentially to the farm parcel without having to traverse another property. Additionally, the applicant has advised that the residential parcel would be used for a concrete yard or for landscaping materials, which are generally commercial uses. So in applying for the rezoning for that residential parcel, we request that this be addressed through recognition, that that use is being done on the property, and also advising that it is accessory or subordinate to the residential use. With regard to the agricultural land loss, so this residential parcel is sized as such to account for the storage barns as well as the residents. If those buildings are removed, the parcel could generally be reduced in size needed to only accommodate the residential use as well as the water and septic system in consistency with the provincial policy statement. Additionally, the applicant will need to confirm that the lot area, permitted uses, setbacks, and lot coverage of the residents in the barns, if applicable, any deficiencies can be addressed through the subsequent rezoning. Lastly, the applicant will also need to provide confirmation that the farm parcel will be consolidated with another farming operation. Because this is, a reverse surplus farm dwelling severance, we would typically accept that before the applicant applies for this, but in this case we're asking for proof that it is done after. So based on the previously mentioned, staff are satisfied that the criteria for this severance has been met or can be appropriately addressed. As such, staff recommend that approval of the application subject to conditions 1 through 15, as the application is consistent with the PPS, county official plan, Southwest Middlesex official plan, and the zoning bylaw. And I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay. I think we're going to stick to the meeting order I have here, Marion, if that's all right, and we will have the opportunity to ask those questions to the planner. But at this point on our agenda, I'd like the applicant to be allowed the opportunity to speak to the application. And Jill, is David McEachran present? I see him on the screen. And David, if you're with us, if you unmute yourself, we'd be pleased to hear from you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to council and staff present for allowing me to join in here. Yes, I don't have any significant questions. I will make a couple notes of clarification. The use of landscape storage materials on the concrete pad are strictly limited to use here in our personal property. It's not uncommon that I get a load of mulch or wood chips every other year and just use for landscaping around our gardens and trees along the property edge. But I'm certainly not in the commercial landscape business, as most of you who know me know that's not what I do. And just to address the other item about the surplus the surplus farmland going to another operation on that map that Marion had put up there, the two properties immediately south of this one are both already purchased, and the properties have closed to the individual who has a purchase agreement on this current property pending the severance. So that is close by the extra land that they will be owning. Aside from that, I would look to retain those buildings for storage use. And as far as the pasture and corral area, it's pretty simple to drop. There's just a couple of soft lines, I guess you'd call it, like rope fencing, that are attached to the posts. They could be removed quite easily for access to be gained from the northeast corner of the property, which is the regular field access for this farm that we used to operate ourselves. So there's a good farm entrance there to the northeast corner, and ease of access to both the croppable land area and that pasture area. And I may actually use some of that fencing to continue along what is going to be severed to discontinue the access from my yard into that pasture area or into that farm field area. So that's pretty easy to do. Other than that, I don't really have any other major concerns or issues.
Thank you, David, very much. And we appreciate you visiting us tonight and making those comments. At this time, Council, we have the opportunity to discuss this and ask Marion any questions, or to David. And I'll open up the floor to questions from Council through the chair, and just raise your hand. Yes, Councillor Vink, I see your hand first, followed by Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yes, Dave touched on the situation with the outbuildings. There's a perfectly good bank barn on that property. A lot of bank barns are being removed. A lot of history is being removed. It's in very good shape. And I believe it should stay with the severed property. So I'd like the planner to comment on that.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Marion, you go ahead and respond to Councillor Vink if you wish.
Through to Councillor Vic. So the barn itself, if it were to remain on the property, the CBO has requested that it is verified that it is appropriate for a residential accessory use or accessory building. If it were to remain on the severed property, which I believe is the farm, is that what you were asking, or onto the residential?
It would be on the residential, I believe, the bank barn.
Okay, yeah. So if it were to remain, it would just need to verify that it would be appropriate for residential uses.
Yep. So structurally intact is what we're looking for. Okay. Yes. Okay. Deputy Mayor Wilkins, followed by Councillor McGill.
Thank you very much, Mayor Mayhew. Marion, I'm wondering, when you talk in your report under conditions on number 5, if foundations is the cement slab that Mr. McEachran's talking about.
I'll let Marion, if you can answer that, or if the Deputy Mayor can rephrase that, or if there's some misunderstanding of the question, please ask.
Sure. Sorry if I can jump in. Additionally, we do have our CBO on the call as well, who would have provided that condition, who may be able to answer.
Okay.
So just for clarification, Stephanie, I'm talking about the foundation. Is that the cement slab that Mr. McEachran's talking about? I'm not talking about the barns. Is that what that is, Marion, or who wants to take a stab at that? You want Arnie to do that?
I see Arnie put his hand up there. So
okay.
Councilor McGill, if you don't mind waiting just a minute, perhaps I can let Arnie answer this. Arnie, welcome to Southwest Middlesex meeting. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you too, Mayor and Council. Through the Mayor to the Councilor. Certainly when buildings are demolished, we recommend that the buildings be demolished right down to the foundation. I guess the applicant is wishing to retain a concrete pad area, and that certainly is reasonable. We just like to, again, when we see buildings get demolished, the site generally should be cleaned up so that there's not a foundation sitting in a field somewhere that's in the way. But if it's not unsightly and if it's being used, then that's reasonable. The concrete pad can certainly stay.
Okay, I'd actually like that left in. I think there's a lot of use could be with that cement pad. I know that, you know, landscaping materials, storing some equipment on periodically. I think probably even you can have your children enjoy playing basketball on a cement pad like that or riding their bikes on it. There's not a lot of spots to ride out in the country. So quite frankly, I'd like that left in if it's not a big issue with anyone. And I will come back with another question, but I'll let the other councillors have a chance at that. And thank you very much to the three of you for answering that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Arnie. Councilor McGill, go ahead. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I had a question about point number 5 too. The second line, if a storage barn is to remain, it must be confirmed by an engineer that it is structurally equivalent to a residential accessory building. Haven't seen that in any of the other severances we've dealt with. I think it usually just said if the barn was to remain, I think it had to be confirmed by the chief building official that it couldn't be used for livestock or something to that effect. Could we change it to that? Because this looks like maybe an unnecessary expense to have an engineer in to confirm something.
Thank you, Councilor McGill. I too had the same concern. I know that there has been extensive renovations on some of these buildings and major maintenance and upkeep through the years. There's been good stewardship of the building, so to speak. But Marion, I believe we may be under the realm of provincial statutes here that require this, and I'll let you answer the councillor and perhaps my concern as well.
Sure, through you to the councillor as well. This condition was placed essentially by planning and the chief building official as well. Within the official plan for Southwest Middlesex, it does require that if there's any farm buildings that are surplus to the needs, that they could be removed or they may require to be removed. In some instances, we have seen applications where, depending on the building, they could apply for a change of use permit through the chief building official. So that is another option, but I could let Arnie respond to that as well.
Yes, thank you very much, Marion. Arnie, again, we're making you earn your money tonight, so come on in.
Thank you. Through the mayor to that question. So farm buildings in Ontario are built to the Canadian Farm Building Code. They're not built according to the Ontario Building Code. So they are built to a different standard, different spans, spacing of rafters or roof trusses, and beams have different spans. So when the building is actually changed, or the property is changed from an agricultural use to a residential use, the buildings are no longer a farm building, they're accessory to that residential use. So the wording that I've suggested as a condition for them to retain an engineer, certainly you can also infer that to mean that they obtain a change of use permit to note the change in occupancy of that building from a low human occupancy farm building to a residential accessory building. So, and with regards to the heritage barn, we supporting or retaining heritage buildings such as that. So we would look for a change of use permit for that barn as well. And as part of that, we would want to see that there's no pens in the barn where animals can be kept. That generally the barn is open spaced and no longer looks to be a live building, but just a storage building. But that should be documented really as a change of use permit. And quite often that does involve a review of the building by an engineer because that barn or the drive shed were built to different standards, a lesser standard than the Ontario Building Code.
Okay, yeah, I thought that there might be a provincial statute there that would address that. Council, we can continue with questions from members of council. Are there any others? Yes, Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
Through the chair to the applicant. You reached out to me inquiring about item 5, requesting to not have to go through the engineering process. I'm inclined to support the applicant in this, and I can appreciate the technical side of this that we've been advised of. However, that is the part where council bridges the gap between the technical information that we're receiving. We heard about our official plan being a component of it, but that is where we get to make the decisions on it. So I'd like to hear from the applicant about this specifically from him and how he would like to see us move forward with this.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell. David, if you could address the question, give your opinion on that, and we're in reference to number 5.
Sure, through the mayor to the councillor to answer that question. Councillor Cowell, yeah, I guess this is a new process for me. I haven't done a severance before, and so I guess I was concerned about what level of cost may be incurred to obtain such engineer's report. I've mentioned, I think to you, I have no concerns of the buildings here not meeting standard or code, as some members have mentioned. You know, they've driven by the buildings, they're familiar with them, and they're kept up very well. And that's the reason why I want to retain them. If they were in disarray and disrepair, I'm all for those buildings, those types of buildings being removed. But yeah, these are in good repair. We've used them to store, you know, ATVs, lawnmowers, and the such in. Kids use it for recreation. They're basically storage units at this point in time. But yeah, there is the history and heritage there. And I guess that was my question to council is, what is the, you know, is this a requirement? As Councillor McGill made mention, you know, they haven't always seen this in a severance application. So I'm wondering, you know, where council stands, whether that's a absolute requirement. And as I said, I'm not concerned about the buildings not meeting that application for repurposing them to residential accessory from agriculture. I'm just concerned about what excessive costs may be involved or may not be involved with getting that done, and the timing around it as well.
Okay, thank you, David, and thank you, Councillor Cowell. Council, I'm looking for your hands there, and are there any? Yes, Councillor Cowell, follow-up question, followed by Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
A follow-up question I have is for the pasture and the corral fencing area. I drove down there this afternoon. I drive by it almost once. Well, it used to be every day, but now COVID keeps us home. So I've never actually paid attention to your pasture, applicant McEachran. And I noticed today that the entrance to the field is 20 feet, 20 yards. I know it's a big difference, but I don't understand the measurements, but it's supremely close. And so my one thought was if the gate was moved, it would provide access from the farmland to it. And I'm wondering if that is potentially a more affordable option. And alternatively, again, I'll put that back to the applicant. Are you content to move your fencing as per the request suggests, or would you prefer to perhaps just move the gate so that there's access to the farmland?
Thank you, Councillor Cowell. Mr. McEachran, go ahead and respond to the councillor if you wish.
Yes, through the mayor to the councillor. It is difficult to find the actual property line there, and I can understand your confusion there. There is about 110 feet of corn stubble to the east, or the direction which you live, to the east of that pasture that is actually the farmland that's going to be severed. So the access to the farmland is actually, you referenced roughly 20 yards to that entrance to the road. That road entrance actually comes into into the farmland property that will be severed. So literally just removing the that fence, the lines on that fence would allow access into that pasture. It's not like you have to actually drive through that pasture to get to the cropland. The cropland actually fronts the old drive roadway there and that laneway. So I'm leaving it in discussions with the purchaser of the farmland that it will be severed off from the residents. They are not concerned at this point in time in whether the pasture stays or goes. They may actually utilize it to crop on, and they ultimately it's up to them, pending the severance, whether they want to get rid of that entire fence or leave some along the front of the roadway, etc. So there's no access concerns or issues as far as accessing either the croppable land or that pasture corral area from Old Drive. It's just a matter of dropping the lines off of the fence posts, which I'm absolutely willing to do, and is easily done.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Wilkins, I believe you've been in the waiting line here, so go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor Mayhew. So just for clarification on number 5, when they're asking that if the applicant chooses to keep the barns on his property, that it must be confirmed by an engineer that they're structurally equivalent to a residential accessory building. We have done that in the past, but what we did was we asked for change in use permit, correct? Who wants to take a step? Correct, Arnie? Okay, just so that we're all clear on that. I know Councillor McGill seems to be a little confused and Councillor Vink, but we have done that in the past. So this is just a change up a bit, correct, Arnie? Is that where we're going with this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a change of words. You can ask for a change of use permit, and that documents
okay.
their use.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. Mayor Mayhew, I just have a question, and I don't know who wants to take a stab at this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have no problem with removing that from the condition either. I'm just wondering that if we were to remove that, would we be complying with the code? Who wants to take a stab at that?
I think I'll let Stephanie or Arnie. Go ahead, Arnie. I see your hand up there. If you could answer the councillor through the chair.
Yeah, through the chair. Until you change the use of a building officially, it is still the original use. So a bank barn is a bank barn until you change the use of that. So they can bring cattle into that bank barn if it's not changed. So and there would be zoning implications that you would have a livestock building and a drive shed on this residential parcel. So yeah, it's legislatively, it really needs to change the use of that. So it's no longer a farm building, a livestock building.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, Arnie, thank you. That was a complete answer. Council, any other questions? I don't want to miss anybody. If I could, to the applicant, one question. David, we were mentioning fences. Councillor Cowell brought them to the table. Are there any fences that define the boundary of the property that you will be living in and owning that give some definition to where your land is in relationship to the agricultural land which has been sold? Are there any fencing that you wish to keep as part of your residential homestead, your new residential homestead?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there's the one stretch of fence that is immediately east of my house. It's approximately 75 to 80 feet from the edge of my house to what would become the east boundary of my residential property that's severed. There is a fence line along there, and it is on. That's exactly where the site was measured to square off the house and buildings. And that would, in my mind, make sense to leave and retain that fence just as a physical boundary to whenever that, say that's cropped, that area is cropped again. It's nice to have a physical barrier of where equipment can be and where they shouldn't be if there's some sort of physical barrier there. So yes, I would entertain that if that is possible.
Okay, thank you very much. It does define the area. And if I could just close, Marion, that one small section of fence, can that be retained to define the barrier of the gentleman's and his partner's homestead there?
Through you, yes, it would be feasible to keep that on the property.
Okay, thanks very much. And in the recommendation, if we can make sure that we pay onus to that. Deputy Mayor Wilkins, I see your hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Is Councillor Cowell not asking that that whole fencing be allowed to remain? I'm just confused and I may have missed that. Could you clarify, Councillor Cowell?
My comment was just, I believe the planner's comment was that there needs to be access to that pasture from the field. That is the agricultural land. So it's my understanding, having driven by, that if that row of fencing is removed, like just the wires, for example, as the applicant mentioned, that opens up the pasture area to be accessible from the rest of the severed property.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell.
Okay. Thinking, Mark, you're okay? I saw your light on there a minute ago. You're okay?
Yep, I'm okay.
Okay. All right. And last call, council. We are now at a point in our order of a meeting order that there's oral submissions of delegates and written submissions of delegates. Are there any, Jill?
There are neither for this application.
Okay, thanks very much. In order to accommodate the rules of the public meeting, council, David and planners and Arnie, we must take a comment recess of 5 minutes to make sure that there are not any other concerns among our ratepayers out there. So Jill, it is 7:37 and we will reconvene at 7:42. Thank you, council. Thank you, Council, for enduring that 5 minutes there. Jill, have there been any oral, other oral submissions from other participants received?
No one has registered at this point.
Okay, yeah. Councillor Bartlett, I see your hand up.
Yes, through you, Mayor Mayhew. I did receive a text from a ratepayer with a question, and he asks, so as part of the severance approval, barn needs to be removed. How close could a new livestock barn be built to the severed portion?
Planning is a question for planning. If we could address that, planners or Arnie, if you want to chime in here, I see your hand up. Mr. Marsman, go ahead.
Yes, through the mayor, that's a great question. And maybe Marianne can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the farm parcel that is being retained will be zoned and which will not allow livestock. But if a livestock use is proposed, it would have to comply with the minimum separation distances in Ontario, as known as MDS. And the MDS is calculated based on a number of variables, including the type of livestock and the number of livestock head. So it's a number of things that come into play when approving a livestock building. But again, Marianne can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the retained farm will be zoned that will not allow livestock.
I think Doug, thank you, Arnie. Doug, I think you were concerned about the farmland containing the livestock and not the residents. Did you get your answer there? Are they targeting the land in question? I'm not sure they are.
From the text, I believe it was from the farmland.
Yes. Okay. So it would be not the livestock on the severed property. We're talking about the farmland, which is going to be used for agriculture. What would the minimum distance be from the new residential unit in the country? But the same rules would apply. The same minimum distance separations would apply to that. And Arnie, I'm going to let you sit on that for a minute. I'm going to let Stephanie, I see Stephanie's hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, through the mayor, just to clarify, so I'll explain both the severed and the retained parcel. So through the conditions of the consent application, they will be required to rezone the parcel with the dwelling to the rural residential zone, which will not allow for livestock use. And the remnant agricultural land is zoned a more restrictive agricultural use. So agricultural uses are still permitted, but as Arnie mentioned, it would be subject to the minimum distance separation criteria.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, Doug, for bringing that to our attention. Following the order of procedure, the applicant has his final remarks. David, this gives you an opportunity to ask some of our technical specialists with us here this evening. If there's any questions you want to direct to Marion or Stephanie or Arnie, this is a great opportunity for you to do it. David, if you have any concerns, do not hesitate to express them, and we'll try to get you the answers that you're after. David, if you'd like to go ahead and just address your questions, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you to Arnie, I guess just looking for clarification. As I said, this process is somewhat new to me. So if we were to change what was originally being asked of a report on the buildings to be the agricultural buildings to be retained, if I understand you correctly, there's an opportunity to change the requirement of having an engineer inspect to see that they meet a residential accessory building. Is that separate or totally different from what you've suggested as just submitting an application for the change of use of those buildings, or does that still require that inspection from an engineer?
Yep, through the mayor. Great question. Typically, the evaluation of the building is done by an engineer. Part of the change of use, there's a couple requirements when we look at a change of use permit. The first is we want to make sure that there's no livestock in the building and that the buildings really are not in a characteristic that would allow livestock. So if there's any pens in the bank barn, we would want to see the pens removed from the barn so it's just open. The other aspect is how are these buildings constructed? If they meet the Ontario Building Code, then you wouldn't need any type of evaluation. But if the buildings are old buildings and constructed in a way that doesn't meet the code for a residential accessory building, then you would have to get a qualified person to look at it. And there may or may not be any upgrades that are required.
Thank you, Arnie. Just a secondary question through the mayor to you. So a couple of years ago, we did an addition to my residence here. We added on addition to the residence. And if we were to compare that to the newest building code that's just brought out, because the code's updated every 5 years, my current addition that we just wrapped up, as I said a few years ago, wouldn't necessarily meet today's building code. Is it expected that the farm buildings that have been used for 100 years are to meet a current code that my brand new house addition won't even meet?
Through the mayor, excuse me, through the mayor, if you had, say you had a detached garage, something that's maybe 30 by 30 that you've always stored your cars in, it wasn't a farm building, and that was to stay with the house, you would not have to study that old garage because it was built as a residential accessory building to a standard of the day. Just like your house today does not need to meet the building code of today. But when you're taking a building and you're changing the type of occupancy in that building from low human occupancy farm building to a different type of use, you would need to make sure that it meets that standard of today.
Okay. Dave, I don't think that's the answer you wanted, but that's the answer that Arnie has to give you.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I guess I'm just wondering if there's any other options. As far, and again, it's a cost thing. It would be really unfortunate to have to go to the cost of removing those buildings to turn around and replace them with a new modern drive shed just to do the exact same purpose. That would be really inefficient and a waste of money. As far as the livestock building and penning and stuff, there are some areas of the barn that are subdivided by concrete walls that used to separate what used to be pens. Those are definitely not something that are easily removed within that barn. Some of those are structural walls that were in place as part of the structure, but also created penning. So I guess that's one concern I would have. The easiest solution for me to basically take that barn out of any livestock use would be a complete disconnection of water service to that barn. If you don't have water facilities in a building like that, you can't simply have livestock in it. And that would be a very simple thing that I could decommission the water supply to that building. But I guess that'd be my only other concern, is where are the fine lines between removing penning and not. As I stated, there's several walls that are structural that are also pen, like I would call them a pen wall essentially, but they are part of the structure of the building.
Arnie, I think you want to address that.
Yes, certainly, through the mayor. We certainly will be reasonable in that way. Yeah, removing any significant concrete from inside the barn could affect it physically. And so removing of plumbing is the way to go for sure. Any metal pens that are in there is something that can be removed without damaging it structurally. And we would document that there's no livestock in the building as well at the time. So there would be a new zone applied to the property, as Stephanie outlined. As soon as we document there's no livestock in there, it's no longer, it wouldn't be a legal non-conforming use. We would confirm that there's no livestock in there, and it had to continue that way.
Yep. Thank you, Arnie. I think we don't want to get into the details of the building code, I think, at this meeting, but I think what we have done, David, you've been introduced to some new contacts this evening with Arnie, and of course, Stephanie and Marion, and introduced to Marion. So, you have the opportunity to have dialogue and contact them. Arnie is in his office in Middlesex Center, and perhaps discussions surrounding that, as Arnie mentioned, he's willing to work with you, and perhaps an on-site meeting could be arranged. In closing, David, is there anything else you would like to say?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the rest of council and staff and team. Appreciate the opportunity for this application. And I will just close with, I feel comfortable that that we can meet these requirements. I don't have any concerns or worries at this point in time. I would appreciate this this application moving forward in as timely a manner as possible. As mentioned, there's a purchase agreement on the table, and I would like to move forward. And as I said, I don't see any major issues or hurdles being able to work with Arnie and Stephanie and Marion to reach those. As I said, I'm open, and I don't have any major concerns that the buildings, if they were not good structurally sound buildings, I would be concerned about that. But I'm not too concerned about any requirements that may be needed to move forward with the severance. So I thank you for your time and resources on this application, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Arnie and planners. Council, I believe you have enough information to make a decision. We will declare the meeting closed, the committee meeting closed at 7:54. The chair will now consider motions regarding the application. Yes, Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
I'm concerned that if we are forcing this building to be under the scrutiny of an engineer simply to accommodate a restriction in a severance, that we are putting this building at risk. I'm concerned that the situation might cause the barn to come down, and we've received information in the past about how important it is to maintain these cultural and heritage farms. So with that in mind, I move the recommendation but remove the restriction 5 from it.
Okay, that addresses some of the concerns, but I'm questioning whether this is in order in terms of the statutes that the province laid down, particularly planning statutes. Councillor Cowell, I appreciate that motion very much, and I have some sentiments to the same regard. But Jill, I'll need clarification on that if we can actually do this. Could you step in here?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I'm not certain. I think I've had a very brief conversation with Mr. Marsman before the meeting, but that's it. So I think that he's explained the requirement of the difference between what happens when the change of use of the property and now the different code that applies to the structures that if they're remaining. I guess I would say if you would like me to look into whether or not that motion is in order, I would just suggest you defer this to a future meeting and make a decision at a later time, because I would probably need to have a conversation with both the CBO and legal counsel just to make sure that we're in order.
Yes, and delaying it would be contrary to the applicant's wish as well. And I know Councillor Cowell's motives were good, but it may not be moving this forward, as I use the words from the applicant. Councillor Cowell, go ahead with a follow-up.
I brought my concerns to staff earlier about this, and I had a chance to speak with them and make them aware of this. So I'm a bit disappointed to hear that we don't know if this is something we can do when it's something that I made an attempt to make them aware of. in advance. Additionally, we heard that we would likely have a non-conforming situation here. And in the past, we've had non-conforming buildings with non-conforming zoning. And I think that in reference to Planner Cabral's comment that we, it's not in our official plan, but we have done things against our official plan in the past. And the addition of this is relatively, I mean, and perhaps it's just the language that's changed. So that's my comment on this motion.
Okay. Councillor McGill, thanks for your patience. I know you've had your hand up a couple of times there. I've spotted it, but go ahead.
Yep, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I know we can do things that don't conform to our own Southwest Middlesex bylaws, but we can't do things that don't conform to the county or the provincial rules. So I'm wondering if there's some way we can change that number 5 and just take out that second line and put in, I forget what it was that Arnie was suggesting about change of use of the building instead of having that word engineer in there. Because I don't want to do something that's going to not pass at county council and make the applicant have to start this process all over again. Or I don't want to delay this because I know he told me that he would like to get this done as soon as possible. So would you have a suggestion, Arnie, for how we could change that wording of that second line?
Arnie, if you could give us a tip there, we'd appreciate it. Go ahead, Arnie.
Yeah, through the mayor, we would certainly be comfortable with the change of the wording to such that the applicant obtain a change of use for any retained buildings on the property to reflect accessory residential use from an agricultural use.
Okay, and follow up, Councillor McGill.
Well, if Councillor Cowell would accept that change, I would be willing to second the motion.
Okay, I'll leave that to Councillor Cowell's discretion.
I appreciate the sentiment, Councillor McGill, but as we heard, it still involves the same engineering issues, and that's the concern that we face, is that potentially asking for someone to bring, as the applicant mentioned, 100-year-old barn up to the residential code is unachievable, I suspect. And my concern is that it will have an impact on this old barn. And we've heard more than once that we're losing barns in Ontario. And so I am surprised that we would have a law at a higher level that would not allow for historical preservation.
I see two hands, Councillor Vink first and followed by Councillor Scholdice.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yes, I'd like to move the motion. We heard from the owner that this is very timely. The sale is, probably the new owners want to put a crop in there, and that's why it's likely so timely. And with the change in the wording, I'd like to either second Councillor McGill's motion or to make the motion.
Okay, I'll have to sit on that, Councillor Vink. There is a motion on the floor. I will have to, out of respect to Councillor Cowell, ask for a seconder. If I do not get one, then we can entertain that offer that you've presented for council. Council, there is a motion on the floor. Deputy Mayor Wilkins, I see your hand. Go ahead, Mary Gay.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I have a feeling we're not done with these conditions yet. I think somebody, and maybe even me, will ask that the fence that is a boundary fence that can remain in there.
Yes, that is.
Councillor Cowell, were you getting to that?
I think the applicant spoke to his willingness to make changes to the fence. I wasn't sure it necessarily needed to be addressed, but if you would like to make an amendment to address the fence, then I would be happy to see that.
I actually want to make an amendment to something else too, but I'll go ahead. I want to leave the fence in there as a boundary fence. I think it just makes good neighbors. So I'd like that piece in there. And I would also like to amend number 5 to read that instead of engineering, that a change of use permit be obtained regarding the barn and that the foundations can remain.
As I mentioned to Councillor Miguel, who suggested this change of use, I think we still run into the same issues with engineering. So I will respectfully decline that friendly amendment.
Okay.
Well, Councillor Cowell, I will remind you that we have had that in there many times before. And I think it's fair that we be consistent in these applications. So I'm just putting that out there.
Councillor Kell, last question.
I agree that consistency can be helpful, but one of the principles that I use for me guiding the decisions that I make at this table is to hearing the perspectives of the ratepayers that reach out to us. And so in many cases, we have asked the applicant specifically what they wanted. And this was one of those cases where we had done something and it was in the interest of the applicant. And I think that oftentimes the applicants don't feel like they can ask for something different or unique or changes or accommodations. They see the Planning Act laid out in front of them and they expect to have to conform to every single aspect of it. And when we're offered the opportunity for creativity, I'd like to encourage that from our applicants. So this is how come I've moved in this direction. So I can appreciate that consistency is necessary in some cases. We're seeing even with things like the fence line that there is some creativity and bend within this.
Yep, we get the point. Thank you, Councillor Kell. I think I missed a hand here. Stephanie, did you have your hand up there? Yes, I'm sorry to keep the delay on that. Yes.
Through the mayor, I just wanted to revisit quickly the fencing issue was just to really make sure I don't have the application, sorry, the location map up on my screen, but if you recall, there is an L-shaped part of the fencing that would directly abut the residential parcel that's being severed off. And the only reason it is to provide access. So if there was not an existing access from the road to the square pasture land, and you tried to drive on the other side of the fence, there'd be a landlocked parcel legally. And so that's just the intent of that. I believe that condition was to make sure that they actually have legal access to that parcel if they want to retain the fence. So they have the option there to keep the fencing if they wish. We just would like to have an access confirmed or to remove it. So I just wanted to clarify that if it wasn't 100% clear.
Thank you, Steph. We must make some progress on that. There's a motion on the floor. The chair is going to call for a seconder for Councillor Cowell's motion.
Mayor Mayhew, I made a motion to amend. You need a seconder for that first, please.
Was Councillor Cowell, do I understand that you accepted the friendly amendment?
It's not a friendly amendment. I amended it, Mayor Mayhew. I asked for an amendment to it, Mayor Mayhew.
Okay, all right, okay. Is there a seconder for the amendment?
So
Bill, clarify.
just procedurally, if you don't mind, Mayor Mayhew.
Yes, go ahead.
So you don't yet have a seconder for the motion that's been made by Councillor Cowell. And if at that point there is a seconder, then the deputy mayor can make her motion to amend and it can be seconded. I just would, and I don't have to say it again, council can, or the committee can choose to do what they want, but if the motion is made and it's not in order with the legislation, you may want to defer in order that you can get a legal opinion on that. Arnie was invited to this meeting to be able to provide some context to the condition that's in there. But if we're going in a different direction than that, then I would need legal advice, or I would recommend to the committee that they get legal advice and then that you just defer. You could have a special meeting to deal with it, but I would recommend that you get legal advice, and I'll leave it at that.
All right, and the chair did ask for a seconder for Councillor Cowell's motion. Deputy Mayor Wilkins, thanks for your patience. Go ahead.
I apologize. I thought Councillor McGill did second that.
No. Is there a seconder for Councillor Cowell's motion? Councillor Scholdice? Okay. This is an opportunity to amend that motion. Deputy Mayor Wilkins, you still wish to make that amendment?
I do, Mayor Mayhew.
Okay. Is it accepted by Councillor Cowell and Councillor Scholdice?
I don't think we have a choice. It has to be voted on.
Okay. Okay. All in favor of the motion?
Point of order. Do you have a
sorry.
seconder for the motion?
Jill, we're voting on the amendment here, are we? Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, you would need a seconder to the motion that the deputy mayor has made.
Okay, got it. Okay. Thank you. Councilor McGill, you're seconding that, are you?
Mayor Mayhew, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Can I hear the amendment again? And
Yes, by all means. Yeah, we'll ask the scribe to read it.
I would defer to the deputy mayor.
Okay. Go ahead, Mary Gay.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. So Councillor McGill, just to be clear, I have asked that the fence remain boundary, but Stephanie says that's not necessary, so I can remove that. My concern is removing the part for foundations need or cement slabs need to be removed, and that instead of engineer, confirmed by an engineer, that it would be put in that ask for a change in use permit in its place.
Okay, Councillor McGill, does that clarify your question?
well, it does, but I don't really think that's an amendment. I think that's changing the motion because Councillor Cowell's motion is asking for that item number 5 to be taken out completely. So no, I don't think I will second that amendment.
All right. Is there a last call for a seconder to Deputy Mayor Wilkins' amendment? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor by Councillor Cowell, and that motion was seconded by Councillor Scholdice. Is it clear to council what they will be voting on? Are there any? Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead.
No, I'm not really 100% clear what we're voting on. Are we voting on that we're going to eliminate option number 5 completely? Is that going to be part of that motion?
I'll let the scribe clarify that, and Councillor Cowell can certainly speak to her own motion as well if she wishes. Yeah.
My motion is to pass the recommendation, but without restriction 5.
I'd like to ask a recorded vote.
Yep. By all means. Okay. Council is clear. Councillor Cowell has put that in a very concise manner, and so it should be clear what we're voting on. And I'll hand it over to Jill to call the vote at her leisure.
Okay, and just to confirm as the chair, you think the motion is in order?
Well, I have some concerns about as mayor, my concern is the liability of the corporation in this, and I have to always bear that in all decisions that these conditions are put in there to not protect the municipality, but to protect the municipality legally, but also to protect people. And that's a concern that that I weigh heavy, and I'm not sure I'll support the motion on those grounds that I have a great sense of history and I understand that some of these aspirations are hard to meet, but we do have statutes in planning that are at two higher levels of government than us that we have to maintain. We do put some trust in our planners, and I am concerned of the liability aspects of it. But when I look at conditions of number 5, let me read it again, just so the chair knows. Like all these barns, can be remained. Yeah, I will let the motion. I will let the motion stand. It's been moved and seconded. I will let it stand, and I will let council make the decision on this. So yes, call the vote. But I advise council that I'm reluctant to support the motion in terms of the liability aspects of it. It's not that I disagree with the philosophy of it, but I am concerned about the corporate responsibility. Go ahead and call the vote, Jill.
Okay, and I'll just reiterate that council may wish to defer on this matter. But if it's your wish to call the vote, okay. Councillor Vink?
No.
Councillor Bartlett?
No.
Councillor Scholdice?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wilkins?
No.
Mayor Mayhew?
No.
Councillor McGill?
No.
Councillor Carruthers?
No.
Councillor Cowell?
Yes.
The motion is defeated.
Okay, council, are there any motions on the floor to accept the planner's recommendation or other? Councillor Vink, I see your hand. Go ahead. Go ahead, Martin.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Al. Yes, I believe Councilor McGill had raised something and I'm in agreement with it. I'm happy to second any motion that Councilor McGill would want, but if I have to go ahead, I'd like to see all the options remain, and except for the wording being changed about the engineer to what Arnie mentioned to us about change of use, and that's be my motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McGill, would you second that motion?
Yeah, I just would like a little more clarification of the exact wording. I think maybe if Arnie could help us with that.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Marsman. I appreciate your help.
Yes, through the mayor, that the applicant obtain a change of use permit for any agricultural buildings that are to remain on the property to document the change of use from agricultural to a residential accessory use.
Okay, thank you. And our scribe has that. Mark, does that satisfy your inquiry?
Yes, it does. I'm just curious as to
And,
what the cost is of getting a change of use permit. Is there a cost in that, involved in that?
Yeah,
Yes, quickly.
Through the mayor, there is a cost. We have a fee in the fee bylaw. I don't know what it is, to be quite honest, what the change of use permit is. I suspect it's anywhere from $150 to $300 for the change of use permit, but I can't say with certainty.
Okay, thank you. And Deputy Mayor, thank you for your patience. You saw your hand up. There's a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. Do you have anything
Thank
to
you.
add?
I do. Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I think that's what I asked for, my amendments. So now you've all confused me. I'd like a friendly amendment to that, Councillor Vink. If you made that motion, did you, or was it Councillor McGill?
Councillor Vink and seconded by Councillor McGill.
Friendly amendment that cement foundation can remain, please, and thank you.
Okay.
No problem.
Yep, no problem with that. Mark, you okay with that?
Yeah, except really what we're hoping for here is that the whole barn will be remaining. There won't be a foundation to remove, because hopefully the change of use gets changed and the whole barn stays there.
Okay.
So I don't
Anyway,
really think that's necessary, but that's okay with me.
Yeah, it
Right.
actually is the foundation, the old foundation. It's my understanding, Councillor McGill, is there now. It's not with this old barn. Am I correct,
I think it's
Dave?
just the chair can clarify. I think you're using the word foundation. Do you mean the word slab, the cement slab that the? Am I?
There's a cement slab existing now.
Yeah.
That the applicant would like to remain there. I asked for clarification early in the meeting from Marianne whether that was what she was referring to as foundation. I think Councillor McGill is confusing the two. So there is an existing cement slab there now.
I like the word slab. Yeah.
All right.
That's the word.
Thank you
I like
very
to hear.
much.
Slab. Okay. The foundation is supporting the building. A slab is an entity unto itself. Okay. Councillor Vink, you agree with the cement slab remaining, and Councillor McGill, I understand you do as well. Thank you. It's a friendly amendment. Council, are you aware of what you're voting in? And Arnie has given you the language that we've changed. So failing no other discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All opposed? Motion is carried. Well, thank you very much, Arnie, for joining us this evening. You've been a big help. Both Marion and Stephanie, thank you very much. David, thank you for your presentation as well. And we'll keep this thing moving forward, and you make sure you utilize the contacts that you've been introduced to this evening. Council number 5 on the agenda, future meetings, May 26th. And we'll adjourn Committee of Adjustment at 8:19. Back to our regular agenda. We are at number 7, public meeting under the Planning Act, 7.1 zoning bylaw amendment P3 2021, removal of holding provision regarding the Charlton property. We are pleased to have members of the public that have written submissions to this tonight. The Charlton family, I believe, are with us. I have not seen their names yet, but I remind all those in attendance that this is a public meeting regarding a land use planning, and that the comments are to be centered around and focused on how we use that land. We will call the public meeting P3 2021 and P4 2021-3355. Lobelia Drive, John Mark and Cheryl Charlton to order at 8:20. And Stephanie, if you could define the purpose of this meeting and present your report and recommendation, I'll give you the floor now.
Thank you. So as council will recall, an application for a zoning bylaw amendment P6 2019 was granted on October the 23rd, 2019 in order to rezone a portion of the subject lands in order to establish an agritourism use as a secondary farm occupation by permitting 5 nature lodges limited to containing either a washroom or kitchen, 3 farm suites, and seasonal events, in addition to all other permitted uses in the parent general agricultural A1 zone. At the time of the rezoning, a holding provision was placed on the subject lands with the intent of restricting development on the property until the completion of a site plan control application, which includes the registering of the agreement on title. The purpose and effect of the temporary use zoning bylaw before you this evening is to allow the public to park their own personal travel trailers up to a maximum of 4 for weekend / short-term stays in the 4 designated nature lodge spaces as seen on the site plan before you. So they are the red boxes 2, 3, 4, and 5 in front of you. And this is for an interim solution for a period of 3 years to allow the business to operate prior to the nature lodges being constructed. The permission for the travel trailers will expire after the 3-year time period of the temporary use zoning bylaw or the construction of the nature lodges, whichever occurs first. And the total amount of structures, either nature lodges or the personal travel trailers, shall not exceed 5 during this 3-year time period and must be contained again within the nature lodge spaces, which are seen on the screen in front of you. The applicants have completed the site plan control application, and the agreement was registered on title this January 2021. And as a result, the applicants have also applied to remove the holding provision in regards to the site plan from the subject lands. Unless otherwise specified as a permitted use, such as a campground, for example, the use of a travel trailer for sleeping, eating, or accommodation of persons is prohibited within the zoning bylaw. And the intent of a temporary use zoning bylaw is to permit those uses that are not permitted as of right. So staff are of the opinion that the proposed temporary use to permit the public to utilize travel trailers for a maximum of 4 while the permitted nature lodges are being constructed to allow the owners to operate the agritourism business they will allow them, to operate and will not substantially alter the use of the lands beyond reason. The applicants advise that the travel trailers will have the ability to tie into the existing septic system and that the system is designed to accommodate the amount of effluent anticipated from the maximum of the 4 trailers. Additionally, the applicants have advised that the trailers will have the ability to tie into a water connection. So as mentioned, the proposed bylaw is for a 3-year time period. And it is noted that travel trailers are generally not designed for 4-season use, and therefore staff will recommend that the use be limited to the warmer months, which are generally from May 1st to the end of October. And in order to ensure that the travel trailers are not used as long-term living accommodations, staff recommend that the maximum consecutive days that the travel trailer should be permitted on site is 15 days. The applicants would be, as part of this application process, the applicants would be required to enter into a temporary use agreement to be registered on title prior to the final reading of the zoning bylaw. The travel trailer use cannot commence until the agreement process has been finalized and the final reading of the bylaw has been given. The intent of the holding symbol, as mentioned, was to prevent development prior to the site plan approval process and to generally ensure proper and orderly development. Staff are satisfied that the site plan process has been completed and the agreement has been registered on title, and therefore are of the opinion that the holding provision can be lifted and the agritourism use can begin to commence, with the exception of the travel trailers, until again the temporary use agreement has been finalized. The application was circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act, and staff received the following comments. The chief building official noted no objection to the temporary use rezoning, but it is requested that the travel trailers not be permitted during the winter months, as the structures are not suitable for, generally not suitable for winter conditions. And building staff are currently reviewing servicing of the site and will continue to review with the owners. CN Rail has no comments or objections, and the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority has also noted no concerns with the proposed application. And subsequent to writing the planning report, staff did receive, a letter of support, and I believe 2 letters of objection in regards to the application, which will be discussed in the written submission portion of this meeting. So it is recommended that the temporary use zoning bylaw application be approved in principle, limited to first and second readings of the implementing bylaw. that the owners enter into a temporary use agreement with the municipality, that the final reading of the zoning bylaw be provided once the temporary use agreement is registered on title, and further that the removal of the holding provision be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, very much. At this order of the meeting, section B, the applicant will be allowed the opportunity to speak to this application. Are the Charltons with us, Jill?
Yes, we're here. Can you hear
Oh,
us?
there you are. Got you right. Yes, John, Mark, how are you? And Cheryl?
How are you folks? Good to see you
Yep.
all.
Okay, good. Okay. Yes, if you'd like to make some remarks, the council would be very pleased to hear from you. Go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, well, we're both pleased to see all of you this evening. It's been several months, if not maybe 18 months since we first met regarding the agritourism business proposal. So we're here again today to ask you once again to approve a temporary rezoning in this area, as Stephanie just pointed out, to allow us to get up and going right away with this business with our overnight stays. A lot has changed in the last 18 months in terms of small businesses in Ontario. Small businesses everywhere have been greatly influenced as a result of a lot of the restrictions that the COVID-19 has placed on them. And I'm sure none of you are unaware of that. Stephanie did a good job there of reviewing what our site plan agreement looks like. I think everyone got a chance to see that. And we're very thankful that you allowed us to have the phases where we could grow slowly at a pace that would allow us to afford to build our lodges as we could kind of test the waters to see how busy we were, what the demand was for people coming to stay and use the lodges. And so at this point, we are at the stage where we have our official website up and going. We've had a lot of positive feedback from the public, both families as well as some of the emergency care and frontline workers who have been working hard during the COVID restrictions and such, seeking to come and have a bit of respite. And we're excited to be able to share our property and some of the events that we have with them, as we can see it as a great way to de-stress and get away from a lot of the difficulties that have come as a result of this pandemic. Of course, currently under the shutdown, we've had to cancel all of our activities, as all other small businesses have as well. And so part of being motivated to ask for this special request is, as Jamark's going to share here, part of that reason is because of a lot of how these restrictions have slowed down progress.
Yeah. Thanks, Cheryl. Yeah, just to comment on our current phase, we have phase one in the works with the building department. And so we're just waiting to hear back from that to build one lodge and a washroom. And even that one lodge, you know, I'm waiting for approval on the plans prior to getting stuff ordered because of the high cost of materials and availability, which is quite challenging today. So we're hoping we can get that going, but at least the washroom, we'd like to get that up and going so that that would be functionable. And yeah, so this is a good segue to get the business up and running. One thing I don't know if this is the appropriate time to mention it, but I was gonna suggest for you to consider through the mayor to all the councilors and planner, Stephanie there, if we could back the date up maybe to April 1st now, of when we can have the trailers here. Now this is a bizarre situation where we had snow today, but I'm wondering maybe we could get some business even in April in the coming 3 years, if that's something that we can consider as well. I'll turn it back to Cheryl.
Okay, so this temporary rezoning obviously is to allow for a maximum of 4 travel trailers to be used on the specific zones that will one day hopefully be, will have the nature lodges constructed on them. So the plan is to have the first nature lodge or first overnight guests come likely this fall, depending on how quickly we can build the first lodge. But that leaves us this entire summer without the ability to have anyone come and stay overnight. So the travel trailers would allow people to come. And we know many families and a lot of people actually own a travel trailer. And because of the COVID restrictions, there's no more international travel. You can't go across the border. A lot of the campgrounds are booked. I know they were last year. And a lot of people feel safe in their own little environment. And a trailer would provide that safe bubble, if you want to call it that, where people can come, they can stay within their own living quarters and still be able to participate outdoors in the different farm events that we offer. So we feel like it's a great way for us to get started, get our name and business name out there for people to find out what things that we offer. So just to state again, there will only be 4 travel trailers, which keeps us below the status of being an official campground. That number would decrease as we are able to build nature lodges over the next 3 years. All of the hookups are already there for water, electric, and it ties into the septic, as Stephanie pointed out as well. And besides any questions or comments that council or mayor might have, we appreciate the opportunity that you are taking to listen to our request, and we just ask that you would consider this in light of all of the things that we've mentioned.
Thank you, Cheryl. John and Mark, thank you again. It's the opportunity for council to get in on the discussion. Please direct your questions to the mayor, through the mayor to John and Mark Sherrilton, and of course, any questions to planning to Stephanie you may have. And the floor will entertain questions from council on this issue right now if you have any concerns. Seeing none. Last call for questions. Okay. We can go on then to oral submissions of delegates and written submissions of delegates, and Jill or planning can advise me of that. Go ahead, Jill.
Through you. So we do have some individuals who have registered to speak to this particular application, and I have separately received written submissions as well. So maybe I'll ask Denny to start. The first on the list that I see is Bob Boyd.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Denny, if you would agree, Bob Boyd is that. Bob, are you with us? I'll ask you, Bob, to unmute. If you hit your little microphone button there. Yeah. Mr. Boyd, if you could unmute, it would be great.
And he might be on the phone as opposed to a computer. So if that's the case, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it is *6.
Okay. Oh,
there, can you hear me okay now?
Yes, Bob, we can. How are you?
Yes, very good. Thank you. Mayor, we just still want to reiterate that we're not interested in entertaining this type of thing in an agriculture community. And I just wanted to still post that we are still firmly against this for a number of reasons that we put in the first meeting, and they still stand, trespassing, safety, and those things.
Okay, Bob, I recall those remarks. Yeah, there was, concerns expressed on that, and I know assurances we're giving that the owners would mitigate that to some degree, but I know that it is a legitimate concern that people have in terms of trespassing, and sometimes it is hard to control, but the committee hears those comments and we'll take them under consideration.
In addition to that, we have a campground that is right there locally that we want to make sure that is supported locally. I don't see a reason why we need a secondary, even though they say it's underneath the campground amount. I just do not understand why we need another one in the community so close when they can utilize the campground that the county has already put in place. And as far as the trespassing, I was already out once hunting, had 3 children running across the path when we were hunting between us and the dog. That's a big concern for me because they said that they would make sure that didn't happen. It's already happened. I just don't know how we're going to maintain that going ahead without putting up huge fences and making compounds. It doesn't sound correct to me in an agriculture community. I just don't understand. I'd like you all to take that into consideration.
Okay. Thank you. Jill, that concludes Mr. Boyd's comments. Denny, if you're with us, Denny, if there's any others that wish to speak.
I think Jack and Pat Daly. Denny,
Okay.
if you want to let them speak.
Okay, I'm looking for them on the screen. Jack and Pat, if you can hear me, welcome to Southwest Middlesex meeting. If you'd like to proceed, go ahead. Yeah. Jack and Pat, I hope you can hear me. If you unmute yourself, or if you're on a phone, *6, Jill, is it? We'll try to help you on a technical sense here. Jack and Pat Daly, it's your opportunity to speak. If you could get a voice connection with us. Jill, we're not having much luck here, are we, eh? There seems to be a technical challenge here.
Yeah.
If we can, oh.
A video, I think a video is, no.
No luck?
Video yet.
Yeah, that's
So
one of the
you want to
pitfalls.
try *6?
Jackie and Pat, if you have a phone, can you hit *6? I still see that red microphone, Jill. Yeah.
Me too.
And Jackie and Pat, last call, *6 if you can. Be with us. I don't see any movement. Denny, can we move on to another one and perhaps we can come back to Jackie and Pat Daly? Or we can go into written submissions and Jill can read them and we can go back. Oh, Jack and Pat, you might be with us here. Are you? Jackie and Pat, are you with us? No. I saw the red microphone disappear. Jill, I thought maybe we had him there. Okay, we'll have to move on in the interest of time, people. Denny, Jill, if you could give me another name to come forward.
Denny, I'm not sure if you've already pushed somebody in there, but you've got Van Huidonk, is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Jennifer, if you can unmute yourself, go ahead. Yep. And try again, Jennifer. I saw a little flash there, but you're still on mute. And our only other option would be by phone. And Jennifer, you keep making attempts at coming into our meeting here. If you can Keep up your efforts at unmuting yourself. Not seeing anything. Denny, are there anyone else we can go on and come back to Jackie and Pat and Jennifer when we go through the list?
We have one more registered, Luann Benton,
Okay.
and she should be joining any moment.
Okay. Luann, again, if you can unmute yourself, we'd appreciate it.
I believe I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
You bet. I think we can hear you. Thank you very much for joining us, Luann. How are you this evening?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good. You go ahead.
Okay, I have some written comments here, and then I'll just add something else at the end. So
Oh.
I am Luann Benton. My address is Gardner Trail, R6 Elvinston, and that's just around the corner from John, Mark, and Cheryl and family. Can't leave them out, those little ones. So I want to provide my comments in support of their application. So I'm confident, based on my relationship with the Charltons, that we can rely on them to act in a manner that will be in accordance with all the stipulations in their application, as I believe they've done thus far. I'm also confident that their intentions are in line with their business plan to operate their agri-tourism business on their home farm. They have proven themselves to be kind, generous, and supportive neighbors to myself and others. I also believe they will not knowingly take any action that would be detrimental to any neighbor, friend, relative, or anyone new on their property. I believe their business venture is good for other local businesses, as their customers take advantage of many other opportunities to visit our nearby towns. I am personally aware of the interest in their agri-tourism business. I often share the Facebook posts from that I think Cheryl mostly posts under the Jira Homestead name. And the responses I get from friends and others on Facebook, I'll just share with you a couple if you don't mind, in quote. I hear that I will definitely visit this location with my kids. I can't wait to book my alpaca walk. That sounds like fun. My children will love playing with those cute goats and so on. So I just believe to enable people to bring their own accommodations and enjoy this experience is just the right thing to do. I believe we should all support their efforts, engaging the public with an opportunity to experience farm life and maybe even leave their smartphone in the car. So one last comment on that. I have a trailer in my own driveway. So I have a travel trailer, and it's been there for the 18 years that I've lived here. On other occasions, I've had family come and leave their trailers here for a short period of time, and it's never caused a problem. I've never seen any negative issues with me having a trailer in my yard or others having a trailer in my yard, my relatives, of course. And with COVID-19 all around us and this pandemic, it's just a further reason to use trailers in their business. I think it was the exact right thing to do. And I want to tell you that my husband and I support this application wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Luann. Jill, I'm going to go back to Jackie and Pat Daly out of respect to them. Last call to unmute. Or Jennifer Van Huydonk, if she can unmute. Jennifer, I think we might have you here. Could you speak?
Yep, I'm here. I was just interested in following along with the progress of this. I really don't have any comments about it.
Okay, thank you very much for your input there. Yeah, that clarifies it. Thank you very much. Jackie and Pat Daly, are you able to unmute? Last call. I'm afraid that's not going to work, Jill. We've given them the courtesy of many chances to do that, and unfortunately, there's some technical issues there. Jill, perhaps they may attempt to communicate with us in the comment recess. So we will take 5 minutes of time. It is 8:46, and we will meet at 8:51.
Did you want to do the written comments after the recess?
I missed that. Yeah. Do you have the written comments? Yes. We'll do
I
those
do.
now. Yep. Yeah, we'll take those now. I'm sorry for that.
Oh, that's okay. So Ms. Benton, she had provided the written comments, and that is what she read. So I'll move on from that. I've got that already captured. The next written submission was from, and I believe I have the right last name from both, but it's Doug Scrimger and I think Sharon Scrimger as well, on Old Airport Road. And their comments were, we are concerned about noise from excess traffic and the effect on wildlife, which has been on the increase since these plans began. I have a written submission from Pat and Jackie Daly, and they were trying to get on as well, but I will read this, and if they need to connect with me during the recess, we can.
Okay.
So their submission says, letter to council regarding discontinuation of the holding provision on the zoning amendment of the property next ours, starting an agritourism business with concerns that we have. We have built a home here in a quiet, peaceful place, enjoying the quietness and enjoying the privacy and nature surrounding us. Now we are made to endure a tourism moving in, invading our space. I would think it would be better for assessment of situation for you if you had the opportunity to have your property being close to this and having your lifestyle change from what you had originally had in mind for it. It was amazing that your thoughts were changed after your tour of area, and interesting that the people with the property beside this were not invited to hear what was said. Noted that noises from conservation area were mentioned as being heard, and all the time we have been here, we have never heard this. We have had to approach people that are there to control noise when hunting season is on. Will this be something which will be more prominent, noise, with the number of visitors moving in and activities? No information given on times/seasons. This would be ongoing. Some notes made on Facebook of this place for some time, which makes information available to a large number of people. Comments have been made that not all farmers and neighbors are opposed to the proposal. Are they on adjoining properties? Thoughts of other people from other county listened to as well, even though not close by. But there are also others from other counties not close by that do have concerns about this, not thinking this is a great idea. The site plan is different and changes from the original one. There are now more parking places, including bus parking. Is the amount of traffic going to increase? This will contribute to the increase in noise. And further, now use of trailers is mentioned for use until the number of lodges built. The seasons involving this is not mentioned or numbers indicated. Noted that this plan is to last 3 years. Does this mean that in 3 years they have the time to figure out a new plan and reapproach for a larger expansion? Noted on site plan that there is a phase 9 mentioned. How large is this allowed to become? Also, septic tank with leaching is now included in site plan. Questioning about drainage into next property. Is this going to routinely be checked, and by whom? New structures now being added to property. Have building permits being approved? Concerns about trespassers. This is private property on which no trespassers are allowed. How will this be maintained and controlled? Would appreciate you considering withholding the amendment, considering those who live in property close to theirs, from Pat and Jackie. And then I also have a submission from Robert Boyd, which is not the same person as I understand it as Bob Boyd.
Okay.
So this is also from RR2 Alvinston. So Robert Boyd submitted, I object to the zoning application for the following reasons. Area is not serviced, i.e. water, roads, lighting, sewage, etc. Fully accommodating vacation tourist area is in close proximity. This is an agricultural area. This should require a public meeting. The drawing in the application is not very clear regarding timings and specifics. Surrounding area is not compatible. There is not enough public input. Drainage from this property is not very clear. Require clarification in various parts of this report. Requires additional cooperation with local taxpayers. Owner appears to be in a rush to receiving local government approval for severances with minimal input. P.S. Report is very confusing to the average layperson. Those are all the written submissions I've received.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Jill. Those complete that. Council, we have gone through both members' oral submissions and written submissions. And we will now have a 5-minute recess. We will recommence the meeting at 8:57. Jill, 8:52. We'll come back in 5 minutes, 8:57. Thank you, council. Take a break. Thank you, Jill. We're back at it. 8:57. We've been gone for 5.75 minutes.
So, Mayor Mayhew, I may have the dailies on as well. So Jackie, if you don't mind just trying to speak. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Jackie, I hear you faintly. If she could even reiterate her words to you, Jill, and you could convey them on her behalf.
Yeah, I think it might be a connection. So she is listed as having connected to the speaker, but I think there's probably just an issue on the actual computer. But I do have Jackie on my phone, so I can try to see if you can hear her that way.
Okay.
Want me to try that?
Yep, you give it your best shot.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, a little bit of feedback, but we can hear you.
That's lovely. I just wanted to bring up some facts again about this being an nice fireplace, and I've heard, I do believe it was the same person who spoke at the last meeting. He doesn't live in this community. He does live around the corner. His property isn't close as we are. That's wonderful, this thought. But again,
it's 21 hours.
It just makes a difference if you're here, right on the spot, instead of down the road or far away. I have never, ever heard any noise in the conservation area that was remarked upon before. As far as people in this area that they say don't have any obstruction to this or any problems with that, that's not quite correct. There are people who live around this area who are in this county, just like the ones they know as already, that don't agree with this. I'm not up to having somebody build a little community up next to my place, like you're talking about what you're doing right now. You've also got another building structure already built there. You're talking about putting more in, you're talking about moving trailers. But if you're renewing this in 3 to 5 years, which will probably be or more. I moved away from large areas like towns and cities to live out here. I know you're trying to build a large community behind me. I just don't think this is a great idea. I don't think you're thinking about anybody else who will want to live quietly in this area and enjoy nature. My other concern was I had counselors that were in agreement with how I thought about this. And then the tour was taken at the property behind me. And all of a sudden, all their thoughts changed. I would have loved to have been part of that little tour to find out what all was said. And on that note, I would sincerely hope that you would reconsider about keeping restrictions on this bylaw and not letting them move forward. And my other concern is you're talking about all this activity, excuse me, with other restrictions, are there not with the COVID? I realize that people have concerns that they like their free time, but are you going to bring a bunch of people in where we're keeping everyone else 6 feet apart and more restrictions than that, but they're just going to come to your place and do whatever? Anyway, I have nothing more to say. I'd just like you to reconsider what is being asked of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Daly, very much for that. I appreciate you sticking with the technology and at least getting through to us. Jill, following the recess, were there any other submissions?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on, we'll go to the applicant's final remarks. The Charltons, we hope are still with us. And yes, we'll give you the floor, John, Mark, and Cheryl.
Great. Well, thank you once again for listening and hearing our requests for this temporary rezoning. I suppose agritourism is an opportunity for us as a family to be able to run a small business on a 50-acre farm. It's hard to make a living these days in farming, but agritourism, being as it's encouraged by the government as a means to provide income, I suppose that's why it was first brought to our attention. So we're trying to stay within the boundaries of what the Ontario government has put forth in its provincial policy. We do appreciate the concerns and we respect the opinions of our neighbors. We do try to live peaceable with our neighbors. And I understand that this can be very concerning and frightening when things are changing. And as much as we can try to reassure them that we do respect them and the concerns that they have, our vision at Gyra Hills is to provide a peaceful place for families and people to come to get away from the city, and at the same time educate them on farming practices. And we believe that in educating people, it provides them with an appreciation for what farming is all about, what our Carolinian forest is all about. And when they understand that more, they're more apt to take better care of it. So we think that in the long term, the vision of what we're doing will actually meet the needs of our neighbors as well. Whether they can see that today, I don't know, but in the long term, we feel that this is the way to go forward in the future. So I don't know if you want to add to that, but.
Well, other than just that how much the government's trying to encourage this, and given the high costs as we spoke of regarding building those lodges, and it just makes it really prohibitive to move forward. So it just would really provide an opportunity for Southwest Middlesex. The campground mentioned is not in our township, so it would be a good earmark for Southwest Middlesex itself and all the business that it would bring to the community.
Thank you, John Mark. Thank you, Cheryl. That concludes your statements. We can move on to council's decision. Council, you have heard the Charltons and the planner. You have heard remarks from the public. The decision falls in our realm as to how we accept the recommendation or not. So council will proceed with that. The recommendation is before you. There's a couple of words that I think are very important in this recommendation. One is the words temporary use agreement. And that is important in the sense that we know that this is not a long-term issue, but it's a bridge to get to a sustainable business platform from the Charltons. And I will ask council's opinion on the planner's recommendation. It is before you. Will someone move that? Councillor Crothers? Thank you. I see a nod there. Councillor Cowell, I see your hand up as seconding that.
I just wanted to ask Councillor Crothers if he'd be willing to make a friendly amendment to take into consideration the applicant's request to have it adjusted from May 1st to April 1st. I've taken my own Girl Guides camping in April and can appreciate that if you're staying in a trailer, it's really not that bad.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Councillor Cowell, for that. And Ian, I noticed your nod there as a friendly amendment.
Yes.
Yep, and council will open that up for questions. Yes, Councillor Cowell, I see your hand, and followed by Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
Mine is more of a comment. Myself and Councillor McGill had the opportunity to participate in the Farm Trust session last month, and they talked a lot about on-farm diversified use and the benefit it can have to agriculture in rural Ontario. And I think that opportunities like this are a benefit to agriculture. And I think that we've had very few opportunities where we can make a decision that can actually help support a small business during COVID-19. And if this can help one of the businesses, especially an agri-based one, stay above float, I'm happy to support it. And finally, to the comments that we've received from some of the neighbors, I really am supportive of individuals being able to have the use of their own properties in a way that they would like to within the confines of the parameters, as they've mentioned, the Ontario government. So I would hate to see one of those neighbors be restricted in the future because of an opinion of one of their neighbors. So for me, it's the idea that we need to allow people to do what they wish on their own property, even if it is noisy children.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cowell. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'm just wondering if anyone knows when the local campgrounds open, and that would be probably the closest to us would be Campbell's Park. I did hear today that it was Memorial Day weekend. Does anyone know if that's accurate or not?
I can't answer that personally, Deputy Mayor. If any of the others can, yes, Councillor Cowell, you have the answer?
I don't know specifically when Campbell's Park is open, but I know that the Pinery for their regular, like, bring your trailer is open in April, because I was looking at booking some camping. If that's any help. Like I said, I don't know, but I believe too, actually, when I think about it, the Longwood's, not Longwood, but we have campsites as part of the Lower Thames Conservation Authority over a Big Bend.
Yep.
And they're different though, because there's no hydro. But I want to say they started the process of opening. So maybe it's May 1st. I'm sorry, I don't 100% know. I can look it up for you, but.
We'll keep that, but good
Thank
question.
you.
Deputy Mayor, yep. I wish we had the answers, but there's probably a variance. Any other questions on this motion? Yes, Councillor Scholdice, go ahead. Yes, Mike, go ahead and just unmute.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'd just like to remind council that we've already approved the original plan against the wishes of some of the surrounding neighbors. Those neighbors that have contacted me have stressed that one of their primary concerns has been that this property in time will become a trailer park / campground. And now we have a request to park 4 trailers on site. I wish the Charltons well in their business plans and with the nature lodges, but I will not be able to support this amendment.
Okay, yes, and the planner has put restrictions in that in terms of numbers and use, and it is based on a formula. As one lodge is built, one trailer site is reduced. I just want to remind council of that. Councillor Vink, go ahead, followed by Councillor Cowell.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'd just like to point out that Campbell's Conservation Area is also partly in Southwest Middlesex.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Cowell, did you have a question, Krista?
No, just a comment. The Big Bend Conservation Area is open for camping as of March 1st this year.
Oh, really? Is that right? Thank you very much for that. Okay, last call for questions. There's a motion on the floor that the planner's recommendation be approved, and it's been seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion's carried. And thank you, Jill, very much. And thank you for the speakers this evening. We have 7.2 on our 7.2 plan of subdivision 39T SM 2101 zoning bylaw amendment application P5 2021. Stephanie, if you would like to provide the purpose of this public meeting on this application and lead us into your report, we would appreciate it.
Absolutely, thank you. I'm just gonna share my screen. All right, so the purpose of the report before you is to provide council with preliminary information on an application for a plan of subdivision and a zoning bylaw amendment application. And it is for information purposes only. A recommendation report will be given to council at a later meeting after feedback from the public meeting. Any agency / ministry circulation has been received and taken into consideration. The purpose of effect of the plan of subdivision is to create 26 lots for single detached dwellings and 13 lots for 26 semi-detached dwelling units. And access is proposed to be from Stella Ave and will be a new public road that will have a cul-de-sac, as you can see on your screen before you. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone lots 8 to 33, which are highlighted in red, if you're able to see the striped red color on your screen, from the future residential holding provision 2 zone to the residential first density holding provision 1 zone, and that's again in order to facilitate the 26 single detached dwellings. Additionally, the application is to rezone parcels 1 through 7 and 34 through 38, which are highlighted in green on your screen in front of you, to the residential second density holding provision 1 zone. Additionally, to rezone the property to, lot 39 to a site-specific R2 zone. And the reason being is in order to maintain a building envelope with the exterior side yard setback requirement, there is a deficiency in terms of the lot frontage for one of the 2 units of 8.23 meters. Which you can see on your screen again before you in purple. And then the final color on your screen before you is the yellow area, which is the proposed stormwater management block. And the applicant has proposed to rezone this to the open space area. In addition to the applications and the proposed draft plan, the submission included a planning justification report, as well as a servicing and stormwater management feasibility study, The provincial policy statement, county official plan, and the Southwest Middlesex official plan all generally encourage residential development with a variety of forms of housing on full municipal services within settlement area boundaries. The notice of the applications were circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act. Staff did receive comments from Bell Canada, Enbridge Gas, and Hydro One from our utilities perspective, and they provided what we consider to be a standard condition for this type of development. Some agency comments that are unique to this development include CN Rail, given the close proximity to the development to the rail line. And CN Rail did recommend the following. So for the southern portion of the proposed subdivision located within an 150-meter area, the owner shall engage a consultant to undertake an analysis of noise. At a minimum, a noise attenuation barrier shall be adjoining and parallel to the railway right-of-way, having returns at the ends and a minimum total height of 5.5 meters above top of rail. Acoustic fence to be constructed without openings and of a durable material weighing not less than 20 kilograms per square meter of surface area. And subject to the review of the noise report, CN Rail may consider further measures recommended by the approved noise consultant. Additionally, they require that within the subdivision agreement, a warning clause be put into place to notify all landowners that they are located within close proximity to the rail line. We did receive comments of no concern generally from Conseil Scolaire Viamond and Thames Valley District School Board. So both the school boards, French and English, had no opposition. We did receive comments from the County of Middlesex Emergency Services department that just speak to the addressing of the future properties and the labeling of streets. And the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority did note that the property in question is subject to the authority's development and alteration to water courses portion of the regulations. And the issue of concern in the area is to the waterway that outlets through this parcel to the Coker McDonald drain to the east of the lands in question. And they did note that a permit would be required prior to any alteration or redirection of the waterway, and it could be incorporated at the time the permit for the outlet of the stormwater management pond into the tributary of the Coker McDonald drain takes place. And additionally, they did provide some technical comments in regards to the stormwater management feasibility study, which the applicant has received a copy of. The County of Middlesex engineer did not have any comments, as I guess the chief building official did not have any comments as well. And the Southwest Middlesex Director of Operations has noted that additional servicing capacity information for water, sanitary, and stormwater may be needed prior to a planning recommendation report coming forward. And at the time of writing the subject report, staff did not receive any written submissions. However, subsequent to writing the report, we did receive a written submission from the abutting property owner that had some concerns in regards to a drain that outlets, I guess, across this property. No other written submissions have been received. The intent of the subject report is to provide council and the public with information regarding the proposed development, the relevant policies and regulatory context, and to summarize comments received by the public and agencies to date. A subsequent report will be provided, which includes a full policy analysis and responses to comments received at the public meeting for draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment, as well as provide recommendations for council's consideration. And if the zoning bylaw amendment application will receive final consideration by the Southwest Middlesex Council at a future meeting date. And if Southwest Middlesex Council is supportive of the plan of subdivision, it will provide that recommendation to County of Middlesex Council. And then the plan of subdivision will receive final consideration by County Council. So it is recommended that the report and be received for information purposes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. At this opportunity in the meeting, we can hear from the applicant's remarks. The developer, Marco DeMello, may have as a spokesperson Kevin Moniz, his engineer. Would Marco or Kevin be with us?
So I believe you've got Kevin, Laverne, and perhaps Justin Erb as well.
Okay, that's good. Thank you for joining us, you three. Who wishes to go first? Kevin, could you lead us off in this, or Laverne? You go ahead there, Laverne.
Sure, yeah, we'll leave it with Laverne. Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. And I wondered if I didn't have a dashboard here that had any control, so I was wondering if I was going to be able to speak. So I thank you very much for giving me those. I should introduce, make sure that you know that Kevin Moniz is here, who is the partner of Strickland and Elliott Moniz, and I am the principal planner of that firm. I have Nick Dijak with me, who has done most of the work on this application, and Justin Erb is the engineer who's worked under Kevin on the servicing, the functional servicing report that Stephanie had referred to. Most importantly, I should introduce Marco de Mello, who is the proponent, and I can't see his name on the screen here. I don't know whether he's been watching or whether my screen is too small, but in any case, he was going to kind of observe. I guess, and I don't know whether whether I can share screen just to show a plan of the plan. What we did was we showed the plan on an aerial photograph so you can see what's around it. And maybe that's not necessary for you because you probably know the site better than we do, being the governors of that community. I don't know if Stephanie can allow me to do that or whether I can just do it.
I just made you a co-host, Laverne, so you should be able to share your screen. There's a green button that's at the bottom.
Okay.
Well, take your time, Laverne. I know this technology is challenging under this COVID
What I'm trying to
environment.
share is not showing up. Let me see if I can, maybe this one.
Laverne, do you have the map open?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so as long as you have it open, is when you hit the share button, it should come up and you just have to double click on it. Because it'll bring up all the documents that you have up if it's sharing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I understand to be the case. I have you just see so I open it up and then I minimize it to get back to the screen in order to share.
Yeah, instead of doing that, if you've got it open, click on the green button for share screen. That'll give you all the options of what's open on your screen, and you just pick the, I guess, map that you're looking for, highlight it, and then there'll be another button that says share.
We're coming here. On my screen, it says only the host can share.
You should be able to share on your
Okay.
screen because I made you a
Here we go.
co-host. There you go.
You got it, Laverne. Yep, you got her.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Okay, so along with the applications, Mr. Mayor and council members, we did submit 2 reports, one on planning justification and certainly one on servicing. Basically, we're proposing 39 buildings, 39 residential buildings that would accommodate 52 dwelling units. And it's kind of an infill situation on land that's designated residential in the local official plan. So we're really, as you can see, that to the all sides of it except to the upper right is kind of the northeast is our agricultural, which is an agricultural use. We're in the northeast part of Glencoe and have single family dwellings to the northwest, a church to the northwest, a single family development to the building to the southeast, and an auto dealer, auto salvage yard to that again. And then next to that is the railway. So this plan kind of shows that we're infilling. We're doing what the official plan, I think, envisages in terms of residential development. Our lots would be, our single lots, 26 of them would be approximately 45 to 55 feet wide, 120 feet deep, or 5,000 to 6,000 square feet. The semis, of course, are smaller with 11 meter frontages or 6 meter frontages, but about the same depth. And of course, we're encouraged to offer a mixture of housing in these kinds of subdivisions these days as well. So I think that we're trying to comply with what the community wants in terms of what should happen to this land. Now, we did look at the policy framework, the provincial policy statement, the county plan, the local plan. In addition to it being designated residential, we know that we comply essentially on the basis that we're within a settlement area, we're on full services, and we are infilling. So I think the policy framework would look fairly favorably upon this development. In terms of zoning, we're using the standard zones of Glencoe. except for that one lot. We're using the R1 bracketed 3 zone for single family, the R2 zone, without exception, except for that one block that Stephanie talked about at the very front. And there's a notch out of the property, which means we can't make it, but we can make the house 8 feet narrower. And if the side yard can't be adjusted. It is a local street, so we don't think that the exterior side yard plays heavily into this. So I guess from a policy framework is one thing. Just from a practical thing, you know, with the neighbors around us, the church, the single family development, to both sides, we think we're compatible. We think we have a compatible development here that would fit very well and have a positive impact upon this part of Glencoe and all of Glencoe, really. From there, Stephanie's pretty much given you a thorough rundown as well. We could talk more if you wish about the details of the plan, but it is a meeting for the public, and we would like the chance to respond to anything that they might have to say, if there are any, and maybe Stephanie indicated there isn't. If you'd like to hear something about engineering, the stormwater situation, certainly Justin and Kevin can do that.
Okay, we'll give them opportunity, Laverne, to ask those questions and to those individuals.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Members, we'll get back our screen, and we are in the members' remarks. Council, please, planning issues, you can direct to our planners. Laverne as well has a significant knowledge of planning, and we also, from a technical standard, we have Kevin Moniz here as well. If council has concerns regarding drainage, anything like that, direct them through the chair to Kevin. There should be lots of resources available to council. And I remind you again that there's no action taken. We're taking this report for information only. Councillor Crothers, go ahead. Followed by Councillor Bartlett.
You, Ian.
Should know better by now. Yes, through you, Chair, to I believe probably Kevin. I've been just asked about the stormwater situation, particularly the church, and there's several properties to the northwest fronting on the Appin Road there. I see in your submission that will be directed to storm sewers, I presume going through the new subdivision. That I guess I just want assurances that everything that's drained now will continue to be drained as before.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's correct. We're proposing a rear yard. There is a drain that runs, or a drainage ditch, I would say, that runs from the church property toward the southeast through these lands and outlets to that drain that runs along the east boundary of these lands. So we are proposing to pick up that surface drain from the church lands with a rear yard catch basin. It'll then get conveyed to the municipal storm sewers as part of this development, outlet to the swim block of this development, where it'll be controlled for both quantity and quality before outletting back to the original location, being the municipal drain.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Crothers. Are there any follow-up? No follow-up, Ian? Okay.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Yep. Another hand was up here. Who was it? Councillor Bartlett? Yes, go ahead.
I did have a question, but Councillor Crothers asked the same question, so I'm good.
Yeah, and mine as well, Councillor Bartlett, Councillor Crothers. I had the same concern regarding St. Charles Garnier drainage. Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Probably to Kevin with this question. somewhere in the report, I seen that it's up to the municipality to decide whether they have proper sewage capabilities of handling this subdivision. How is that going to be handled?
Kevin, thank you, Councillor Vink. Kevin, from the technical aspect, what have you found?
Yeah, so correct. Our initial report, because we don't have the available information on this, sewage, the municipality's sewage capacity in the lagoons and the pumping stations and all that sort of stuff. Our report sort of sets out the demands that that this subdivision will have on the municipal systems, and then the intention is to work with Greg Storms and other staff there to confirm that your downstream facilities do have the capacity. So that's kind of a joint effort between our office and municipal staff, and even some outside providers to the municipality. So certainly there's some confirmations to be done there. Our report to date is just providing sort of that information to the municipality on what the demands will be from this development, and we can continue those conversations with Greg and team.
Yes, thank you, Kevin. Just another step in the process that lies ahead. Yes, Councillor Cal, go ahead.
With our recent plans to start the process of a development charge, will this impact this development, or will they have already been underway by the time we bring that forward?
And Councillor Cal, who are you directing that question to Jill or to?
Probably, I'm sorry, through the mayor to Greg Storms.
Greg Storms, okay, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, through you, Mary Ellen. I will defer that one to Jill because she is handling the development charges part of this, and she has a lot better idea on the timelines that this would take to get enacted, which then would answer this question.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Thank you, Jill.
Sure. So I think I've mentioned that we're going to work with Adelaide Metcalf, and they're the ones that are launching the RFP. So really, in terms of the timeline, it just depends on what will come, the succession of events. If the study is in place before the development occurs, then I would imagine the development charges will apply.
Okay, thank you, Jill. And thank you, Greg, for your comment. Thank you, Councillor Cal. Any other questions to Laverne on planning or Kevin on technicalities? Yes, Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I noticed that CN comes into play here, so I can only assume that this development will be close enough that the noise attenuation issues will have to be addressed. So my concern going forward is I'm wondering if something could be put in the developer's agreement that stipulates that going forward, any future maintenance on these measures that will be taken for noise attenuation will fall under the responsibility of the developer and not the municipality. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I see a frown from Kevin and Laverne. Am I clear on that?
Yeah, Kevin.
I guess what I'm saying is I don't want any future maintenance or issues with whether it's a barrier or some type of a fence to fall back on ratepayers.
Yep. That's good.
Fair, if I may, Mayor Mayhew. Yeah, I understand your concern, Deputy Mayor Marjorie. I don't think it can be passed to the developer because there'll be a bit of a compliance issue there once he sells these lots, but it certainly could be passed along to the eventual homeowners that purchase those lots. Again, we haven't done a noise study yet, but pending the results, one likely outcome if attenuation is required would be like a wood board, solid board fence. So it would almost become like a rear yard property fence, which the homeowners would benefit from anyways. I think, once the developer sells the lots, he'll be sort of gone from the picture here, but that's something that could potentially be passed along to the future homeowners. Again, I'm not sure, how that agreement, the development agreement would pass through, but potentially something like a homeowner's package or something along those lines.
I would appreciate that. I mean, we've seen before where something like this has happened and then it falls back on the municipality to do maintenance years later. And quite frankly, I think it needs to be addressed now at this stage before it goes too much further, just to protect the municipality. So thank you very much, Kevin.
Okay, thank you, Council. Last call for members' questions. Seeing none, Jill, we are at a point of oral submissions and written submissions. Do you have any written submissions?
So we have both. So
Okay.
we have an
well,
oral submission from Danielle Lane.
Yes, Danielle, if you're with us, welcome to the meeting, and you go ahead and take the floor, Danielle.
Hi, so I have my husband here too. We're both here, Craig Lane. I guess our question that we want to ask now is, we were under the impression that these were going to be rental units for a mature setting. Is that not happening anymore? Are the lots for sale?
I would have to ask from the plan that has been proposed. It appears that they will be single family and semi units that are for sale, but I'm not speaking on behalf of the applicants. I would suggest we go back to Laverne for that. Laverne, could you answer that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, these lots would be fee simple for sale. People would build their own homes on. So the proponent that we have today is not proposing what Mrs. Len talked about there.
Okay, thank you. Yep, Danielle, any follow-up questions there?
Kind of changes the nature of some of our questions, because we were under the assumption that these were going to be rental properties.
Yeah.
So based on that, trying to think what else we'd have. So I guess I'm having concerns over the density of the buildings in that area with the rail being there, as well as the scrapyard as a neighbor, influencing that area's development throughout the years. So I'm just wondering if that's been factored into the density that this has been built. Because these are smaller homes in supposedly a high noise area. And I'm just concerned about that being developed in that area and how well that'll do.
Okay, we'll direct that question. The first of those noise studies have not been done yet. The noise levels will have to be calculated, and that process will continue.
And that's fair for the CN based traffic and noise, but I mean, has the scrapyard been factored in as well? Being a neighbor to this? I mean, I know there's requirements for it to be done for CN, but again, there are other neighbors in the area, right?
Yeah, and another thing too, there is a lot of projects going on within Southwest Middlesex, and the developer Marco DeMello is planning rental units across the road from the No Frills store on Main Street. Those units that he is proposing to go in there are all rental units off Main Street there. There's 17, I believe. Greg can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's approximately 17 units going in there, and all of those are rental units that this developer is proposing. There may have been some confusion there that yes, the developer is planning rental units, but not on that particular land, on another piece of land within Southwest Middlesex, across from the daycare center, the No Frills area.
So the reason I was under that impression is I had actually emailed the developer and had asked, and I had gotten a reply saying that they were, the lots were not for sale and that they were going to be used for mature setting rentals.
And these are the properties off Stella you're referring to?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, Laverne, I see your hand up there. Thank you for your patience. Would you like to chime in here?
Yeah, I just want to confirm that they're for sale type lots, and I'm not sure how I can make contact with the lens, but we could just do this again to kind of make sure that whatever the confusion was, we could unconfuse it and let you know for sure. And I think, Mr. Mayor, you've helped clarify it as well. And I'm just not sure about the conversation that Mrs. Len had with the Marco, because it's beyond me, but we can try and straighten that out certainly after this meeting. I did want to say to Mr. Len, though, that we did look closely at the auto yard for sure, because we don't usually find those in neighborhoods. But this one has been here for 20 years, and it's kind of a gentle one. It's not kind of a heavy duty, where they have huge crushers and that sort of thing, causing all kinds of dust and noise. This is kind of a more of a traditional auto yard, and as large as it is and as old as it is, it kind of uses the older ways of assembling cars, selling parts, certainly accumulating scrap to be recycled and that sort of thing. We visited the site, talked to the owner, and did not find that the day-to-day operations would be having any significant adverse impact on this residential subdivision. And in fact, we even applied the MOE CP D6 guidelines having to do with land use compatibility. And they define industry in 3 types: light, medium, and heavy, basically. And we found this to be a medium density. And the Ministry of Ontario that looks at this as a guideline, it's not really a law or anything, but it's a guideline, says if you have a class 2 industry, you should be 70 meters away from where the noise sources are to the residential uses. And we're 80 meters, and we have lots of intervening buildings and that sort of thing. Most of this operation, the dissembling occurs within buildings, and therefore that contributes heavily to not having noise moving off the site to adversely impact more sensitive land uses like residential uses. So we were satisfied after our visit and looking at the operation and applying the Ontario government's guidelines that the auto yard and this could exist pretty well. The CN people, we didn't think this rail line was used enough to really warrant too much. We're also 200 meters away from it. So we were surprised to hear Stephanie talk about what CN might require, but we have to do our noise study first, and then we sit down and talk to CN about what the requirements are. What they've given you right now is kind of their template requirements of a 30-meter setback and a berm with a fence on top. And so, but being 200 meters away, I think they want us to be 300 meters away, but we're 200 meters away, so we're 2/3 there. And I think once we do our noise study and sit down and talk with CN, we can work this out. And certainly, if there's things that we have to do, we will not be imposing upon the municipality to maintain them forever. So, so we did take those into account, Mr. Lynn.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Laverne.
Thank you.
Yep. Jill, any other oral submissions? Okay. Could we go to written submissions if there's any?
There is. I think council has received a copy of this. It's been referenced, but I'll just read the submission as it was provided to me by the representatives for the Building, Property and Maintenance Committee for the St. Charles Garnier Church. So we wish to comment with regards to the drainage of surface water from the St. Charles Church property at 244 Stella Street and the adjacent residences at 250 Stella Street, 253, 259, 261, and 271 Appin Road. Surface drainage from County Road 14 and these maintained properties naturally flows in an easterly direction across the subject development lands to the McDonald Coker Drain. It's been suggested by staff in quotation marks that during the development, the drainage matter will be brought to the engineer, that there is an existing drain that is serving the church property. The municipality will ask that the developer will contact you to establish an agreement to allow continued drainage. End of quotation. That approach to this drainage matter is unacceptable as there are multiple properties with this drainage area. We would request that the municipality ensure that storm drainage design and approval of the development is adequate enough to accommodate drainage from the mentioned properties west and north of the proposed subdivision. From Earl Moore and Alex Van Heck.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Greg, did I see your hand up there?
Yeah, and through you, Mary Ellen, I probably should speak about this a little bit because we did meet with the church with regards to their issue. Jill, is it possible for me to share?
Yes.
Always possible.
Just let me know when I can.
Should be good.
Okay, so you can see the property here now. Basically this catch basin, the existing catch basin is located back here on the backside of the parking lot at this particular point. And there is some infection that's happening on this development property, which I believe was owned, was one parcel at one particular point. So what you have is you have the residents that are front on to Appin Road, where the grades are sending water onto the new development property and onto the church property itself. So you have basically residents that are, who are supposed to control their own water, but the water is coming down and onto the church property itself. This is somewhat like what we went through with Tanya, in that, we certainly have to work with the developer to make sure that, that these people have access to drainage, but it will be an agreement in the end between the developer and the church to solve that particular problem, unless there is such a problem that we come back to council and say that we need an easement for all these people to hook into to get rid of their storm water, and the general taxpayers has to pay for it. So what we said to the church was that we would certainly raise this in the technical discussions that we have with the developer to make sure that it is addressed. And but we can't forget that common law does come into play here with regards to the control of water on people's own property, and really the general public or the general taxpayers at this particular point. Our role in this would be through council and the development agreement. Like we have no leverage to say to anybody that you have to, even to this developer, that they have to provide legal outlets for these particular properties. So just something to remember. I think that certainly my work with Kevin and Marco has been, very professional and excellent through the construction of Tanya and the work that's going on at 280 Main Street. And I'm sure that they are willing to sort of integrate, the drainage of the church, but there still would be issues associated with these other properties because they have to, common law wise, control their own water that's on their own properties. So it's not the developer's responsibility to solve everybody's drainage problem on Appin Road. And I guess that's what I'm getting to. And I think Kevin has suggested that with the church itself and their outlet at the back and the outlet to the ditch, that they're willing to work with the church. But there will have to be an agreement in place, but that agreement would not include the municipality. That agreement would be between the two landowners, would be very similar to an agreement drain that we put in place all over the municipality. So I don't know, Kevin, if you want to add anything to that, but I just didn't want council to think that it was the developer's responsibility to solve all these properties' drainage problems. And certainly we will be at the table and we will speak for those residents. But again, I think the developer, from what Kevin has said, is he's willing to work with the church, but that's not going to solve everybody's property issue of the contamination that's occurring at 259, 261, 271, 273, and 281. They need to control their own water. It may be a situation like we did in Tanya, where we have to come back to the municipality and say we've worked with the developer to get, an easement for legal outlets, but, that comes at a cost. And I just didn't want council to think tonight that it was all the developer's responsibility to solve all this problem with stormwater, because through you, Mary Ellen, what we're going through on Rose Street and what we had in the Tanya development. So And this is, stormwater is always the big topic of conversation. So I will stop sharing, and I don't know if Kevin wants to add anything to that, but that's just the view from the municipality at this point with regards to that letter itself.
Yep. Okay, but, and I know, that being said, Greg, you're absolutely right, but I know that you also help to facilitate some of those discussions as well. And that's where the municipality comes into play, and we try to help bring to a positive conclusion those discussions. Kevin, would you like to, yeah, just let me see where we are in here. On written submissions, Jill, we've done those. I think that pretty well concludes that. There was only the one from St. Charles Garnier. I have to make some time here. We have a 5-minute recess, and it is 9:53. Council, we are going to have to go beyond curfew. And in order to make the meeting as we come back, this public meeting substantive and follow the protocol is set down for public meetings, I would need a motion that we go beyond curfew now, because it will be 10 o'clock when we come back. Would someone entertain a motion that we go on? Thank you, Councillor Crothers, seconded by Councillor Vink. Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Noted. Okay, thank you very much. Jill, it is 9:54. And we'll come back at 9:59, okay? Thank you. It is Jill. Well, we're back at it. Are you with me, Jill?
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you. Don't see my screen lighting up here. There it is. Yes, thank you very much. 9:59, we'll recall.
It's 22 hours.
Jill, has there been any oral submissions of other participants?
No additional delegates have registered
Thank
to
you very
speak.
much. Applicant's final remarks. Is Laverne still with us here, or is Kevin available, or Laverne, are you handy?
Yeah, I'll speak in case Laverne has dropped off here. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for the community for the comments. I think, yeah, the only other comment I think to address was the neighboring properties, and thanks to Greg Storms for your comments there. But I think the applicant would be willing to sort of receive, and it's certainly our practice from an engineering standpoint to grade our lands to receive those surface flows. The grading on the lots will direct those to the drainage system of the subdivision, and again route them through the municipal storm sewers on the property, through the SWM block, and continue to convey them to the municipal drain. So similar response to the church. The intention certainly is not to block off any drainage that is coming onto these lands as part of this development. So again, details to be worked out later in the process with detailed engineering submissions, but just an overall comment on our design approach there.
Okay, thank you, Kevin, very much. We'll move. Yes, Councillor Cal, I see your hand there. Go ahead.
I just had received one question from one of the people who live on Appen Road. They were inquiring about fences and if there is any opportunity to request or require the new residential properties to install fences.
I don't know whether that could be done. Kevin, I think that's an issue that will have to be discussed with the site plan development agreement. But with that question being asked, I know you would like to come forth with an answer. Stephanie, or would you have any input on that? I think the question is maybe somewhat unrealistic. I understand the motive of it, that people enjoy their privacy, but in the real world, I don't know whether this is attainable or not.
So through the mayor, I would say that that level of detail hasn't been provided yet, but it's not to say that it's a comment that we can't look into, and the applicant will look into prior to bringing a recommendation before council.
Okay, thank you, Steph. And again, I remind council that we're receiving this for information and details. There's many details that will have to be worked out between our staff and the developer's staff, and engineering and planning. We'll lots of I's to dot, and we'll make sure Councillor Cal those inquiries are made. Okay, council, we're at a time where we make a decision. I declare the meeting, this public meeting, closed at 10:03. It is our responsibility now to make a decision that the subject report for plan of subdivision 39 TSM 2101 and zoning bylaw amendment application P5 2021 be received for information. Would someone entertain a motion for that? Councillor Cowell, seconded by Councillor Bartlett. Discussion. Yes, Councillor Cal, go ahead.
Point of order. I didn't motion that.
Oh, go Councillor Crothers. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I don't know why I said Cal. Must have had you on my mind, Krista. I looked right at Ian. Councillor Crothers, Councillor Bartlett. We've got it. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. We're at number 8 on the agenda. Staff reports, fire, there are none. Administration, B, there are none. C, building, there are none. Finance, D, there are none. E, operations, there are none. Jill, I have not been advised of any notice of motions. We have a drainage matter coming before us. The quarter on number 10, quarter revision, the Kelly drain. This is, we will require 5 people on this quarter revision. If we could set this up tonight, council, it would assist staff greatly. This drain is in Mosa Township. Historically, the 2 ward representatives are historically on that. So Councillor Vink and Councillor Scholdice, if you are able to attend, you can check your calendars perhaps, and if you can attend, it would be great. And Deputy Mayor Wilkins, we'd be pleased to have you on that. Are there any volunteers from councillors that would like to be the 4th individual? I saw Councillor Crothers' hands first, so Councillor Crothers, if you could be a part of that court of revision, we would welcome you. And if there are no objections that I be chair of that court of revision, I would gladly take that on, that responsibility. So if I can have it moved and seconded that the members as dictated be appointed. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. And a seconder for that. Councillor Scholdice, thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. And thank you, Councillor Vink, Councillor Scholdice, Deputy Mayor, and Councillor Crothers. We'll look forward to seeing you. And staff will advise us of that with an agenda forthcoming. Unfinished business, I have none to report. New business, there has none put before us. County Council updates and conference updates. Any conference updates? I'll have a County Council update for you at the next meeting. Announcements. If I could just make 2 very quick ones. Today was Administrative Assistance Day, and we want to thank Barbara, Christy, and Wendy for the work they do on a daily basis with our municipality. We pay tribute to them. And I'd also like to pay a tribute to an individual that he's very well known in the business community, Fire Prevention Officer Stephen Gay. Stephen has been our fire prevention officer for a very long time, of course, with the county and under the for a while, a short stint with the municipality. We've been very fortunate that Southwest Middlesex has not had a fire in a major business community. And I've often said that you can thank Steve Gay for that. Many communities around us have Bothwell, Rodney, Alveston, others have had fires in their downtown cores, and we have not. And we certainly wish Stephen well in his retirement, and we thank him for the services that he has provided. Before we go into closed session, can we have the bylaws done so that we can get these out of the way, Council? There are 3 before you. And we require a first and second reading on 2021-034, and we require first, second, and third reading on the remaining bylaws. Would there be a motion, or would someone entertain a motion? Thank you, Councillor Crothers. And a seconder for that, Council. Councillor Vink, thank you. Discussion? All in favor of the adoption of the bylaws? Carried. Deputy Mayor, if you'd be kind enough to accept the gavel, I'll hand the meeting over to you for a closed session.
Absolutely, I can do that. Thank you very much, Mayor Mayhew.
Did you want to just have a motion to go into the closed session?
Oh, right, I thought he did that already.
Thank you. Okay, moved
I
by
guess we
Deputy
want,
Mayor.
I guess we want to get home.
Yeah.
Well, we're home, but get off.
Seconder for that? Yeah, okay, Councillor Crothers, all in favor to go into closed for the reasons given? Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mayor Mayhew. So we are now in.
Just give me a minute to
okay.
get us off. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.